Saint Louis. A well-known king of the Crusades era and king of France who earned the rare title of saint for his unmatched nobility. Most Crusader kings were warriors and fighters, driven by battle and conquest. But Louis was different. He ruled with justice, not just sword. He cared for the poor, the sick, and the weak. He built a kingdom based on fairness and faith, not fear and force. And even in captivity, he stayed a man of prayer and peace. Let's dive into the story of St. Louis, a true messiah for Christianity, a wonder in the history of the Crusades. In the spring of 1214, in the quiet town of Poissy near Paris, a child was born who would go on to shape the destiny of France and earn the rare title of saint. His name was Louis. History remembers him as Louis the Ninth of France. The church calls him Saint Louis. But who was this man? A king, a crusader, a reformer, or something more? This is his story. Louis was the son of Louis the Lion and Blanche of Castile, grandson of King Philip II of France and Alfonso VIII of Castile. From a young age, his life was shaped by power, war, and deep devotion. When he was just 12, his father died. Louis became king, but it was his mother who ruled in his name. A fierce and devout woman, Blanche of Castile raised her son with a single mission: to be a holy king. She once told him, "I would rather see you dead at my feet than commit a mortal sin." At age 15, Louis witnessed peace forged after decades of bloodshed. His mother brought an end to the brutal Albigensian Crusade. At 20, he married Margaret of Provence. They shared a rare bond for a royal couple, riding, reading, praying together. But this closeness sparked jealousy in Blanche. She often kept the two apart, still holding the reins of power. Yet by 1234, Louis stepped into full authority. And from that moment, the character of his reign began to reveal itself. This was not a king hungry for conquest. Instead, Louis built a kingdom rooted in justice, piety, and peace. He established the presumption of innocence in court, a radical idea in a brutal world. He banned trial by fire and trial by combat, replacing them with a court system that honored fairness over fear. He sent royal agents called enquêteurs across France to investigate abuse of power. Even powerful officials were held accountable. In one case, 247 testimonies were gathered to bring a corrupt royal officer to justice. This was not common in medieval Europe. Louis IX was building something rare, a moral monarchy. But his vision didn't stop at law. He gave the poor not just charity, but dignity. Hospitals for the blind, homes for reformed prostitutes, care for lepers and the dying. He sat beneath the oak tree at Vincennes to hear the pleas of common people with his own ears. They called him the most Christian king, and he earned it. Louis was not just a man of faith, he was a man of action. In 1248, he led a crusade to Egypt. It ended in disaster. Captured and imprisoned, Louis spent his captivity not in bitterness, but in prayer. He recited the divine office daily. When he was finally ransomed, he went not home but to the Holy Land. He believed France, the eldest daughter of the Church, had a duty to defend Christendom. When he returned to France in 1254, he was changed. His rule grew even more just, even more focused. He enacted sweeping reforms to cleanse his government of corruption. He wrote a personal guide to kingship for his son, filled not with politics, but with spiritual wisdom. He taught him, "Allow yourself to be tormented by every kind of martyrdom before you would commit a mortal sin." But Louis's legacy is not only law and charity, he was also a patron of the mind and the soul. Under his rule, Paris became the intellectual capital of Europe. The foundations of the Sorbonne were laid. Scholars like William of Auvergne wrestled with philosophy and theology. Thomas Aquinas wrote the Summa Theologica in Paris, blending Christian doctrine with Aristotelian reason. Albertus Magnus experimented with natural sciences, laying early foundations for modern thought. Louis also left behind beauty, art, architecture, and literature. His royal chapel, Sainte-Chapelle, stood like a beacon of light and glass. He commissioned illuminated Bibles, inspired Gothic art, and through his daughter's marriages, spread French culture across Europe. Even his enemies respected him. He kept diplomatic ties with the Mongol Ilkhanate, hoping to form an alliance against their mutual foe, the Mamluks. His correspondence with Frederick II, the powerful Holy Roman Emperor, was icy intense. But even Frederick acknowledged Louis's moral authority. In a continent torn by ambition, Louis IX stood as a symbol of conscience. In 1270, he set out again on crusade, this time to North Africa. He landed at Carthage, but disease swept the camp. On 25th August, weakened by dysentery, St. Louis died in his tent. He was 56 years old. His body was processed across Europe and laid to rest in the royal necropolis of Saint-Denis. His heart was buried in Palermo. Relics were scattered across churches, but his memory lived on. In 1297, Pope Boniface VIII canonized him. He became St. Louis. Even in death, he remained a symbol, not just of France, but of what leadership can be: justice, compassion, faith. This is the story of a king who ruled with a sword in one hand and a Bible in the other. A man who chose the path of righteousness over glory. St. Louis of France, a king, a saint, a legacy.